After one sentence was finished, the audience fell silent. Everyone, including Steve, froze. Some counselors began to whisper, and glanced at the captain from time to time. Some looked troubled, and some nodded secretly. Steve looked serious. "Sir, do you know what you're talking about?" Underwood seemed to be going all out, without any hesitation. "I know. I hope that you, the captain, as the candidate of the third party, will participate in the presidential election in half a month's time." "Sorry, you got it wrong. I'm a fighter, not a politician." As for his whims, Steve flatly refused. "Washington is also a fighter," Underwood exclaimed. "I know the idea is crazy, but I don't think I'm wrong. Look at the United States today, divided and divided. 70 years ago, when you almost lost your confidence in the face of evil, Captain, you once left everything to answer the call. But today, we are facing more crises than ever before, and we need you again." Steve shook his head. The position of the president must compromise with reality every day. The reality is harsh and gloomy. It is dreams and hopes that make life worth living. I am the kind of person who would rather drown in ideals. Underwood smiled. There are many people here, all gathered together for ideals. This country has reached the most dangerous moment, like a giant with deep mud feet, which may fall at any time. The Wakanda invasion is just a fuse. That's because, compared with the past, we lack a certain spirit that we once had. And you, Captain, are the representative of this spirit. When it comes to debating, Steve is no opponent, which is not what he is good at after all. Such a major matter, Steve definitely couldn't decide on the spot. He said perfunctorily that he needed to think about it, and then left. Underwood, are you serious? Is the captain really okay? He was 70 years ago after all, and he has no political foundation. Everyone surrounded Underwood, needing his explanation. Underwood smiled. No one is ready from the beginning. Moreover, what we need is not a politician. This is an era that needs heroes. The captain is the biggest. Goose. However, he did not agree. I think he'll agree. In a hidden room of the hotel, Thor and Jean Grey sat opposite each other. This is the real mind manipulation. More than the professor's super ability. Is it your purpose to have someone who is truly just to steer the direction of this country? Chin thought about it. She couldn't help thinking about the situation of mutant in the original world. She believes that when mutant is being excluded and hostile in various ways, there must be some people who have made their minds on the president. However, in the end nothing was done. The professor's personality made it impossible to accept such a method anyway. And Magneto, if he was given a choice, he would most likely want to get a puppet, and this is impossible to accept. The captain of the United States is different. Whether he agrees with it or not, whether in the hearts of the Avengers or ordinary people, at least he will not be disgusted with him. It is a situation that can be accepted by both parties. To change the situation of mutant, there is no need for policy inclination at all, as long as it is fair and just. Having figured this out, Chin looked at Thor with a complicated expression. It's a pity that there is no such schemer as you in my world, otherwise mutant's situation wouldn't be so bad. No, Thor shook his head and said with a smile, it's not that you can't think of it. It's just that you are all people in the game, and it is inevitable to be biased when considering things. But I stand at another height. In fact, even if the entire Earth to be my enemy, that's all. Steve returned to the temporary residence in silence. He's not someone who craves power. However, Underwood's words moved him and made him fall into a tangle. We need you. This country needs you to make it a beacon of freedom and democracy. But he wondered if he could really bear all this? Thinking about all this, Steve didn't sleep a wink all night. Jingle bell, at 6 o'clock in the morning, the phone rang. Steve, who hadn't slept all night, picked up his phone. It was Stark's call, and he pressed the answer button. Hey Steve, you gotta explain to us what the hell is going on. Is that what they say? Stark asked a series of endless questions, and Steve was dumbfounded. What happened? What did you say? You read the news yourself. Confused, Steve turned on the TV. His pupils shrank suddenly. Extraordinary. The captain of the United States will participate in this presidential election as a third-party candidate. The hero is back. The former leader will lead us out of the crisis again. Most of the interviewed people expressed that they are willing to vote for the captain. In the lobby of the Stark building, all the Avengers gathered together. Outside, it has been surrounded by reporters. During this period of time, Wakanda blossomed more, and the Avengers had to spread out to fight fires, but now there are obviously more important things that need to be decided together. Steve, I think, you shouldn't be getting involved in politics. Really, you're not a fit. Stark weighed his words. Also, sorry, I've never liked politicians much. However, today's people need unity and need a leader to unite them. No one is more suitable than Steve. Today's world is completely different from 70 years ago. The ideas of those years may not be able to solve the current problems. If Steve is elected, it means that the Sokovia Act can be officially repealed. I didn't expect that a young man in Brooklyn would come to this step. But, after all, Steve has no experience in this field. Damn experience. Approved the experience of dropping a nuclear bomb on New York? Most of the people put forward their own opinions, everyone insisted on their own opinions, and Steve's head was getting bigger. Okay, this kind of thing. There is a reason to participate, and there are scruples about not participating. No one can say for sure. It still needs Steve to make his own decision. Stark waved everyone to silence. All eyes turned to Steve. Steve thought about it for a while, and was about to speak. Hey. You didn't inform me of such a wonderful event. I'm not late, am I? Everyone felt a blur in front of their eyes, and Thor appeared at the door with a smile on his face, with Jean Grey beside him. As for Loki and the Black Dragon Princess, they are still playing the rhythm everywhere. Everyone, long time no see. Why are there different beauties around you every time I see you? Stark looked depressed, and at the same time he didn't forget to provoke the relationship a little, suggesting that Thor has many girlfriends. Chin's face was expressionless. This kind of glib playboy is the most annoying. Seeing Stark, who was dying every day, Thor took out his phone expressionlessly and played a long recording. Dude. I bet 50 cents, your son will be a super big bastard in the future, and he will definitely be better than you in the future. He is definitely a role model for getting tired of playing and finding an honest man to marry. F***ku crow's mouth. Me. Forget it, if I really get what I say in the future, if I can't make a move, you can help me beat him. Little Spider-Man came to make up the knife. Who is this? Why does the voice sound like Mr. Stark? Mr. Stark, do you have a son? Oh. Then everyone understood. A group of people were holding back their laughter, including Vision, who had the highest laugh point. Ha ha ha. Ant-Man was the first to laugh, and then quickly apologized. I'm sorry Mr. Stark, I didn't mean it. Believe me, I will never laugh casually unless I can't help it. Ha ha ha. Stark's face turned black. What he hated the most was that this guy put his elders in front of him. And it's so reasonable to behave. Pepper Potts looked at Stark with a more dangerous expression, staring him on pins and needles. It turns out that I am that honest person, it really is. Stark couldn't stand the atmosphere anymore, so he quickly changed the subject. I'll talk about my father later, let me talk about your opinion first, don't tell me you're really just passing by. Knowing that he was changing the subject, most people were still attracted by his words and looked at Thor. Don't look at me, I don't understand your politics. However, this reminds me of another thing. This is what another president has been through. First he was commissioned as a reserve officer in the United States Army, enlisted during World War I, and after Pearl Harbor, he was assigned as a lieutenant to the film team of the Army Air Corps, making training and educational videos to make the most of his acting experience. Steve. I suddenly discovered that this guy's experience is quite similar to yours, except that he doesn't have super abilities. Thor seemed to talk about him sideways, but everyone understood what he meant. He supports Steve's candidacy. By the way, where's Wanda? Quicksilver asked suddenly. She's not here, I'm taking her back to Asgard. Thor showed a weird smile. After all, we are all unwelcome people now, and we will be legally killed if we are not careful. The black lines on the faces of the Avengers. In fact, with so many people gathered in the Stark building this time, it's impossible for Washington not to know, and if they don't act, they just turn a blind eye. After all, they don't dare to touch the Avengers anymore, and if they are forced to turn against them, they can announce the disintegration of the United States in advance. Definitely acquiescing is one thing, admitting that bills are wrong is impossible. Thor seems to be here to say hello, and after finishing speaking, he turns around and prepares to leave. Are you really not going to make a move? Stark couldn't help but ask. You've saved the world many times, this time really not going to do it? Thor stopped in his tracks, shook his head and said, it's not that I can't make a move, it's that 11 cups are needed, I need to make a move. Actually, the board of directors in Washington have now tacitly no longer implement the bill, otherwise we would have troops here to arrest us. Why is he still? Little Spider-Man looked a little aggrieved. Didn't you say that the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility? No, kid. Unexpectedly, it was Stark, who always liked to contradict Thor, who retorted. He sighed, and said in a deep voice, "The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility." This sentence is only used to restrain one's own behavior, and should not kidnap others morally. In fact, for him, helping now is equivalent to approved the bill, and now he represents Asgard, will not accept this kind of compromise. Even if it is only a nominal compromise. 3 days later, in a public speech specially held by Underwood, Steve faced the camera and announced loudly, "I will not let you down, I will not disappoint your expectations. I have decided not to lose in the election." The scene was silent at first, and then cheers resounding through the sky broke out. As the symbol of the spirit of the United States dream, the captain received overwhelming approval ratings. Participating in the election as a candidate of the third group naturally encountered unceremonious attacks from the two major groups. The patriotic entrepreneur, the famous Iron Man, was the first to announce his support for Captain Stark Industries, followed by Wilson Fisk, mayor of New York and great entrepreneur. Subsequently, a large number of officials who were secretly controlled by Jin Bing expressed their support for the captain one by one. Who is Jin Bing? A person who can completely control even an organization like the FBI. After so many years of operation, no one can imagine the potential power he has planted. When such a large force is mobilized at the same time, the impact is even enough to determine the direction of the entire country. In just a few days, Steve's position was almost certain. The result of the general election was as expected. Steve defeated his opponent by a landslide and became the first super ability president in history. This is a historic day. At the inauguration ceremony, the captain loudly preached to the crowd. "Thank you for being here today, and I'll keep it short. I'm flattered to be elected president by the people. But I'm a soldier, not a politician. We're in a crisis right now. Falling apart, full of doubts, the situation is on the verge of breaking out, and people are panicking. The people ask me to be a leader, and I ask the people of the United States to stand up for themselves. My grandmother always said, don't look for challenges in terms of strength, but look for strength in challenges. Children, I understand that in despair what it's like to grow up. I've been taught that everyone should do the best they can. We have to do everything we can to take care of each other. No exceptions. All people must reach their potential. If called, I will answer, otherwise it will be flat out. Looking at today, our once great country is torn apart and divided. I can remember leaving everything behind to answer the call, and now I realize that I can do more for my country, that I can reach my full potential. The crisis requires every one of us to contribute every ounce, to rebuild the fragile national cohesion and to find the history area enough to meet the challenge. I have decided to answer the call of the people. I accept the election results. I, Steve Rogers, Captain of the United States, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President and that I will perform my duty to preserve, protect and defend our Constitution. In the crowd, Thor looked at this scene with a look of nostalgia. This result can be said to be his single-handed promotion. Looking at the cheering crowd, Thor suddenly smirked and said, at this time, what if Steve suddenly said, Hydra hail? What would it be like? PFF'd. There was a burst of laughter. Then all yell right away, Avengers assembled. Natalia teased. This morning, Thor brought the girls back to Earth. If such a historic moment is not witnessed at the scene, I am afraid it will become a lifetime regret. What's more, the ascension of Captain America means that the Sokovia Act can be cancelled soon. After all, it is a routine operation for a new president to withdraw from the group when he takes office. Without the leadership of the United States, the Sokovia Act is a piece of paper. For at least the next few years, the Avengers will be free of any constraints. You know, if it weren't for my promotion, the person standing on the stage now would be a businessman president who is used to running the country on Twitter, and will only shirk responsibility to other countries when something goes wrong. Thor had a weird smile on his face. I believe it. Natalia glanced at him and smiled knowingly. Interestingly, as soon as the swearing-in was over, Steve immediately became the target of a sniper. One of the advantages of being a superhero president is that he can cut off the assassin himself. Captain America personally caught the gunman and handed it over to the bodyguards who came after him in a hurry. Bodyguard. Bodyguard A. Shouldn't we protect him? Bodyguard B. That's right. But just looking at him makes me feel safe. Immediately after the inauguration ceremony ended, the new president took off his suit and changed into a combat uniform, picked up the iconic invincible big shield, and rushed to the plane to prepare for the battle, leaving the reporters' questions behind him. This is a leader who takes his own actions and leads the people to fight against evil. The only one who kept up with him was Peter Parker, a part-time newspaper reporter, who chased after Steve and asked, Captain President, who is the vice president? Are you moving to the White House? The President of Captain America has a righteous face. The United States is my White House. The first decree the Captain made when he came to power was to announce the repeal of the Sokovia Act. This is an era that needs superheroes. We put all kinds of constraints on heroes, but criminals have no constraints. Avengers should never become a weapon in anyone's hands. The leadership of the Captain is a huge amount of encouragement for the entire country, and many people who have lost hope and are decadent have regained their courage. The most obvious is the military. The Wakanda people were surprised to find that the enemy, who was originally vulnerable, changed into a different person in just one day, and his fighting will rose several levels. Then, following Thor's order, a large number of superheroes in the manor joined the battle. Although Wakanda's technology is strong, it is only in the realm of mortals after all, and it has no advantage at all against the mysterious stream. Especially the top players like Wanda, Jean Grey, and Jane Foster. No matter how strong vibranium is, it cannot withstand their attacks. The tide of battle was turned in an instant, and it was useless even if Eric was huddled in the protective shield. He didn't know from the beginning to the end that in Thor's eyes, he was just a dog used to bite people and a shit stirrer. Now that you've finished biting someone, it's worthless. On the African prairie, the rhino troop of the Wakanda border tribe rushed towards Thor and the others with the momentum of crushing everything. In the back, Eric's face sinks like water. It was this group of people who ruined his great cause and made his dream a joke. Moreover, everything I have done for so long seems to have helped the opponent clean up a large number of enemies. A huge monster tens of meters high landed in front of them, and a dragon roar that shocked the world was heard. The Black Dragon Princess showed the prototype of the dragon and roared to the sky. There was a commotion among the rhinos, and no matter how the fishing boat was directed, they refused to move forward. Although they have never seen such an existence as a dragon, it does not hinder their fear of the top predators of the food chain. There was excitement in Onyxia's eyes. During this time, she has been engaged in some intrigues, but her favorite is still the hardy battle. She took a deep breath. Not good. Come back quickly, Wakabi shouted anxiously. But it was too late. A huge amount of flames covered the land of. This grassland was a sea of flames. The herd of rhinos ran wildly in the flames, and let out heart-piercing screams. No no no. Wakabi let out a long howl of pain. For Eric, the rhino is just a weapon. But for him, these rhinos are carefully raised by him, no different from his soldiers. The flame roared forward and hit the protective shield. Eric looked at the other side with gloomy eyes, hoping for this last line of defense. The next moment, a battle axe condensed with divine power descended from the sky. A stormbreaker that can crush even infinite gems, it doesn't disappoint. Click. The moment the shield shattered, Eric knew it was over. Without this big turtle shell, one T'Challa is enough for him to drink a pot. T'Challa stepped forward slowly, and said in a deep voice, "Surrender, Eric. You will get a fair trial." Eric stared blankly at this scene, and suddenly shouted, "No, I didn't lose." Quickly went out a controller and pressed a button. Boom. The ground broke open, boiling smoke blocked everyone, and a fighter plane made of vibranium broke through the ground, carrying Eric and soaring into the air. Stark raised his hand and released a laser with maximum power, but the fighter just staggered and remained unscathed. This is the latest fighter plane equipped with the most advanced weapons. There is only one Wakan. Its armor can even block nuclear bombs. T'Challa said anxiously. I must go back to the control room immediately and get in touch with his authority, otherwise the destructive power of this fighter plane is no less than that of an army. Stark turned to look at Thor. He knew this guy must have a way. Thor didn't make a move, it was Jean Grey who made the move. She stretched out a hand, and the fighter plane in the air immediately trembled in the air. Even though the power was turned to the maximum, it still couldn't move an inch. Thor nodded slightly. The vibranium fighter plane began to retreat slowly, and as Chin's power suddenly increased, with a sound of whoosh, the fighter plane was pulled back and stuck upside down in the ground. Crack. With a swipe of Chin's other hand, the indestructible vibranium fuselage was torn apart, and several metal lines turned into spears to support Eric, who was still in a daze. I'm sorry. This is my first shot, and I don't want to disappoint him. Chin smiled lightly, and raised her hand, as if an invisible hand pulled Eric out, and fell to Thor's feet. Thor squatted down and looked at him, whispering, "From the beginning, you lost." Eric raised his head and glanced at him, and suddenly laughed maniacally. Ha ha ha. You're right, I lost at the beginning. No amount of mortal strength can stop a god. But I don't regret it. I just want to make those who enslave us pay back all this. I'm just taking revenge. But most of your guns are aimed at innocent civilians, T'Challa said righteously. Our compatriots are equally innocent. Thor didn't bother to listen to the brothers' argument. There is no point in arguing about this kind of thing, and no one can try to convince anyone. Are the civilians of the United States innocent? In fact, most of them are descendants of exiles, and everything that their ancestors did is beyond description. Look at what the Indians have not done. Are black people innocent? Thor acknowledges that the history of enslavement is pathetic, but that's no reason to transfer your misfortunes onto others. You must know that Eric's initial attack target included Hong Kong. If he hadn't happened to meet Dormammu and let him cancel this part of the plan, the war would not only spread to the west. Definitely, Thor has no position to stand on the moral high ground to say anything. Because Asgard's history is also not so glorious. As Hela said, the resplendent Asgard was bought with the blood and tears of the 9 realms. Unlike the original book, this is no longer a dispute over the throne of Wakanda, but a catastrophe sweeping the entire world. Even T'Challa is not qualified to give Eric a lenient sentence, he will be court-martialed. Not necessarily the death penalty, but for T'Challa's sake, life in prison is most likely. However, Eric clearly had no such intentions. I will not be a prisoner. Bury me in the sea, like those ancestors who jumped ship to die. Because they know, give me freedom or give me death. He took out a vibranium dagger and pierced his heart fiercely. The end of a hero. Thor sighed, and led everyone away from leaving room for T'Challa. In all fairness, as a villain, Eric is one of those sympathetic villains. Whether it is T'Challa or the villain Eric, they all love the country of Wakanda deeply, and even have special feelings for this race. They are no longer black and white, but more like an extended discussion between conservatives and radicals in today's political game. T'Challa hopes that Wakanda will continue to be prosperous and peaceful, but at the same time, he also hopes that Wakanda will be connected to the world, so that Wakanda can take on more global responsibilities and help some people who have suffered injustice in the world, but he has been hesitation. Eric also hopes that Wakanda is good, and he hopes that black people all over the world will live better. He uses extreme methods and wants to use violence to conquer the whole world, just like what white people do when they oppress black people. The reason why he lost was not the nonsense that justice must defeat evil, but he was on the wrong team. Back in Wakanda, T'Challa retakes control of the country, recalls all foreign forces, and declares the end of the war. As the initiator of the war losses must be compensated by Wakanda. However, Wakanda is different from the defeated country in the conventional sense. Those who are rich will die. In addition, T'Challa made the same decision as the original book, open Wakanda and communicate with the world. These have nothing to do with Thor, there are more important things for him now. The time has come to the end of 2016. If there is no change, next year will usher in the final decisive battle. Although I had been mentally prepared for a long time, I was still a little nervous when things came to an end. After all, among so many bosses, Thanos is not the strongest, but he is definitely the most difficult to deal with. This is the only villain in the official history who defeated the Avengers Alliance. In Muspelheim, a flame giant looks at the figure in front of him. Thor Odinson, Odin's imp. Surta recognized the man in front of him. Surta, the bastard of the bitch. So you are still alive? I thought my father killed you before 500,000. Thor retorted. It's not that easy. At least, before I fulfill my destiny and destroy your homeland, this possibility does not exist. Surta ignored Thor's taunt, and said to himself, Ragnarok is about to open, and the great prophecy is about to come true. And your homeland, Asgard, will be in ruins. I am the end of Asgard. Really? Thor sneered, curiously said. Then you should explain carefully what you mean. The end is coming. When my crown reunites with the eternal fire, my power will be awakening again. I will stand on the mountains, and I will pierce Asgard with my sword. But, I don't think you have a chance. No, I am the end of Asgard, and you can't stop it. Everything will be lost forever, and everything will be burned in a fire. Don't you give up? This is a great prophecy, and no one can stop it. Thor showed a smile. But prophecies are meant to be broken. This is a heroic act. Stretching out a move, the thunder wrapped Stormbreaker and slashed towards Surta. Outside the cave, a dragon flew roaring, trying to support Surta. It's so ugly. How dare you be a dragon? A female voice sounded, and a black dragon rushed out, biting its neck. Roar. Dragon struggled, it turned its head and tried to bite back. A black dragon claw held down its neck and twisted it hard. Crack. The huge dragon corpse fell to the ground, shaking up dust all over the place. Boom. The boulder on the top of the cave broke open, and then a huge amount of crown rushed out. Seal it. Seal it in Jotunheim. This is the home of the giants of Jotunheim. Even though the giants of Jotunheim were wiped out by Loki with Bifrost 15 years ago, that planet is still an ice world. Putting Sur's crown there, the power turtle will continue to weaken, and one day it will disappear. I can defeat Hela without Ragnarok. Thanos is coming. Kamar Taj, Thor said to Strange, sitting on the couch. Kamar Taj needs to get ready. Who? Thanos, a tyrant collecting infinite gems. Forehead. Fatty Wong supported his forehead and joked. Are you sure you're not talking about yourself? Collect infinite gems. You seem to have 3 in your hand, right? And as far as I know, you have the potential to become a tyrant. I'm just being ruthless against the enemy. Thor said lightly. You guys don't know about the arrival of infinite gems, do you? Definitely, it is recorded in the tome of Kamar Taj. Unlike Doctor Strange, who just took over from Sorcerer Supreme, Wong obviously knows more about these. At the beginning of the birth of the universe, the world was full of chaos. Then, with a bang, a big bang created 6 elemental crystals, that is, 6 infinite gems, swimming in the newborn universe. Fatty Wong used magic to construct a picture. Each infinite gems holds a specific attribute: space, time, mind, power, reality, and soul. Strange added. The Eye of Agamotto, the sacred object that every Sorcerer Supreme of Kamar Taj swears to protect, is the legendary Time Gem. Reaching out and chanting a spell, the green light of Time Gem flickered. Thor nodded and said, You understand, that's easy to say. The Thanos I'm talking about now is the biggest tyrant in the universe. Every planet he invades will wipe out half of the life. Now, he is tired of conquering planets one by one. Decided to collect 6 infinite gems, gather the power of all gems, and snap your fingers, you can erase half of the life in the universe. He stretched out his hand and made a gesture of snapping his fingers. You can rest assured. Strange said. The Eye of Agamotto is a sacred object that each generation of Sorcerer Supreme swore to protect with their lives. Kamar Taj will do its best to protect it. Then I can rest assured that Asgard will not sit idly by Thanos' invasion. Many years ago, my father defeated Thanos, who came to snatch the gems, and let him lie dormant for many years. Now, my father is old, and Thanos has once ready to move. As he spoke, he waved his fist and said confidently, I will let him, there is no chance to escape. At this moment, the communication device on body lit up. Thor took it out and took a look, his face changed. As long as you are prepared, I have to leave first. After sending Thor away, Strange frowned and thought for a while, then sat down and recited a spell. Eye of Agamotto spun around, and the green light flickered. Wong Momo watched him floating in the air with his head balled up. With a bang, Strange fell heavily to the ground. Are you okay? What did you do? Wong looked worried. Strange took a breath, and said in a low voice, I went to the future, saw different endings, and I saw all the results of this war. How many results did you look at? 14,605. Then how many times did we win? Strange had a strange expression on his face, and he said after some hesitation, all of them. Ha ha ha. Fatty Wong laughed loudly. It's too funny for that guy to say it so horribly. Thanos is so miserable, he has no chance of winning. However, in almost all futures, it is very difficult to win. Strange looked serious. At least in the 12 million endings, it doesn't make much difference whether we win or lose. In most endings, the Kamar Taj lineage will die, Asgard will perish, and Earth's civilization will be destroyed. The price of victory is that mankind will return to the Stone Age. Wong gasped. Then how many endings are there for us to win? Or in other words, the ending where the loss is within an acceptable range? A sort of. Thor returned to Asgard with a serious face. His mother Frigga was already waiting for him at Bifrost, and Loki had a complicated expression beside him. Have you seen him? Thor asked in a low voice. Well. Frigga nodded. He said, he wants to meet you at the end, and talk to you brothers alone. Where is he? Midgard. In northern Norway, on the edge of a seaside cliff, Thor and Loki walked out of the portal and looked at the back of the front. Is this still my father? Both Thor and Loki's eyes widened in disbelief. In the past, Odin, even if he didn't do anything, as long as he stood there, he could feel a powerful aura rushing towards his face, as if he could destroy the world with every gesture. This is true divine power. But now, what they saw was like an ordinary old man. The #1 powerhouse in the 9 realms, the ruler of Asgard, the king of God, Odin, has finally come to the end of his journey at this moment. The end of the hero. Those were the only words Thor and Loki could think of at the moment. My sons, come here. Odin's old voice came. Thor walked over. Loki hesitated and followed. Sit with me, my world is running out. Odin said flatly, in the last time, I need to talk to your children. Thor hesitated, and finally spoke. Father, in fact, I have a way to extend your life. No need. Odin smiled freely. I know that you have changed a lot with your own efforts, including your mother's fate, but not now. Odin at the moment seems to have seen through everything in the world. I know your method of immortality, but it has one biggest premise: you can't bless a stronger existence. The only way is for me to become an ordinary Asgard people live, but that's not what I want. I'd rather die as the king of God. Besides, as the king of God, I will not really die, and my spirit will live on forever. Thor was silent. This is the pride of the king. Odin was silent for a moment, then continued, the child, Ragnarok, is coming. Loki's eyes widened. This word, he has only heard in legends. Thor interrupted Odin. No, father, I will not let it happen. Surta has been defeated by me. Its helmet is sealed in Jotunheim. The power of frost will eat away the power of fire, and I can completely destroy it. Odin shook his head and smiled. You can solve her problem too? Thor was silent for a moment, and his face was full of determination. Yes. Ragnarok, it's the ultimate move to kill each other. I will never use it. Wait. Who is that she you're talking about? What does it have to do with Ragnarok? Loki, who didn't know the truth, was confused. Odin said lightly. Goddess of death, Hela, my first child, your sister. I've spent my whole life trying to stop her, but now there's nothing I can do. Her ambitions swelled to the point that I couldn't control them. So, I had no choice but to seal her up. Loki was shocked. He never thought that Asgard had such a history. Perhaps, this period of history has been completely buried, all the classics no longer exist, and there is no one who remembers that period of history. Frigg knew about it, but she wouldn't take the initiative to say it. Odin glanced at Thor, smiled lightly and said, I know, you don't agree with my approach, it's normal. Your siblings, including Loki, are very similar to when I was young. Tyranny, conquest, treachery. It is definitely not as kind as it is today. When he was young, Odin, who fought in the 9 realms, belonged to the existence of crying children at night in the universe. Loki Shanshan smiled. I hope you can prove you're right. Well, you're right, we're a family after all. Maybe it's really okay to not fight? Odin patted Thor's shoulder lightly. It's a pity that I can't see it anymore, no matter what the future will be. By the way, you have to remember that Hela's life and Asgard are connected together. Once she returns to Asgard, the power will become endless. You have to pay attention to this. He said these words to Thor. After all, in the face of such a crisis, Loki, the 5 scumbags of the war, can only call 666. Only Thor can really stop Hela and stop Ragnarok. Thor nodded. Do you know where this is? Odin suddenly pointed forward. Norway. Loki blurted out, and quickly felt wrong. How could it be that Odin didn't know where this was? Northern Europe, the place where the Vikings originated, is also the place where Asgard left legends in this world. Thor put the meaning of Odin. You're right. If, when you try your best and still can't stop this, consider taking a step back. Asgard has never been a place, but a place for people. Like here, it can also be thick home. After speaking, Odin's whole body turned into a golden light, which slowly dissipated in the air. Odin, who once shocked the universe, has finally come to the end of his life. Thor took a deep breath. From this moment on, even if the sky falls, there will be no tall man to stand up for it. In other words, he is the tallest in the 9 realms, and he will be responsible for everything. In every corner of the 9 realms, everyone felt an inexplicable palpitation at this moment, but they didn't know what happened. Only Thor knows that Odin's passing means the end of the world's novice protection. From this moment on, the intruders in the universe will no longer have any scruples, and can invade the 9 realms with great fanfare, until Thor knocks them all down. In Asgard, Frigg looked up at the sky with a complex expression. After a long time, she suddenly thought of something and quickly ran to Bifrost's control room. Heimdall. I'm going on a trip to Earth, right now. Obey. Also, no matter what happens in a while, don't take action without authorization. Asgard's power must not be consumed in internal fighting. As the wisest person in Asgard, she is not worried about Ragnarok the most. After all, the worst outcome is just family migration. The real concern is draining Asgard's vitality in the battle with Hela. Her worry is not unreasonable. In the original book, it is because Ragnarok consumes too much that he will be vulnerable to Thanos' invasion later. Heimdall is a little confused. Frigga hesitated for a few seconds, and handed him a scroll. Make the contents of this scroll public. Heimdall glanced at the scroll with some doubts, and instantly widened his eyes in shock. This. The scrolls with trembling hands looked at Frigg. Are you sure you want to do this? Frigg sighed. I think he will understand. Although it is inappropriate to reveal this dark history of Odin at this time, only in this way can Hela's anger be reduced as much as possible. On the coast of northern Norway, the sea breeze suddenly became chaotic, and the seagulls neighed uneasy, as if something extremely terrifying made it tremble in fear and flee in panic. The pale sky suddenly began to darken. When I looked up, I didn't know how far away above the sky. I don't know when a large black cloud appeared. These black clouds quickly overlapped and piled up in the sky, and there will be more and more. The light was obscured, and the coast was plunged into increasingly gloomy darkness. The black cloud is also getting lower and lower, so dark that it is as if you can touch it with your hand, and it is so oppressive that you can hardly breathe. Ahead, a mass of black energy was twisting, accompanied by a dark green light. A slender figure slowly walked out. Goddess of Death, Hela. Hela took a deep breath of the salty air, opened his eyes, and said sarcastically, "So it seems that he is dead. What a pity, I wanted to see him die with my own eyes." Thor calmed down and said, "Hello. Meet you again." Hela let out a sneer. "Why, you don't even want to call me sister." Loki had already panicked in the face of this terrifying boss. But after thinking about it, his old brother is a fierce man who even beat the old thief of Thanos, so he suddenly gained some confidence. He said playfully, "Maybe, we can talk." "Yo, you are quite like him. It's just too weak, so weak that you can lose Asgard's face, and you are far behind you. But it's barely passable. Forget it, kneel down to your queen. I reluctantly accept you as a dog-headed military advisor." Dog-head soldier. Loki was choked half to death, and said angrily, "Damn, I'll put your nose on your face. Come if you can, I'm not afraid of you." With a sound of swipe, a pair of daggers were drawn out, and then pushing Thor. "Brother, Thor, Hela." Thor covered his face. Fortunately, he thought that this younger brother had made progress just now. Now he can't wait to whip this disgraced brother on the spot. That's exactly what he did, kicking Loki in the ass, kicking in the direction of Hela. Hela kicked back. She also felt that this product was a bit embarrassing. Boom boom boom, the first round, evenly divided. Damn. Stop it. Loki finally begged the advanced version of mixed doubles, and rolled aside while gnashing his teeth. At this moment, he felt as if he was the protagonist in some martial arts novel, caught between two peerless masters to compete for internal strength. Loki patted the ashes, and said angrily, "You two have conflicts, you can solve them yourself. Anyway, the throne will definitely not fall to my head." Mad, he has already seen that these two people are not the kind of respected people. The type who loves the young, beats himself unambiguously, and will have a sad life in the future. Hela raised her eyebrows and said with a low smile, "Yeah, you really don't have the throne." Turning to look at Thor, "So what's your decision?" "I think we have to fight today," Thor said lightly. Hela raised her hand, and a slender long sword appeared in her hand. She smiled lightly. "As a sister, I can let you make a move, and you can take the lead. Use your strongest attack, such as throwing the hammer with all your strength. Throw it over and let you crush it, pretending to be coercive?" Thor had a strange look on his face. "I disappoint you, I don't need a hammer now. Reach out, and Stormbreaker is in place. The fluctuation of divine power is spreading to the surroundings." Hela's eyes froze, and he re-examined the younger brother who was beaten by himself a few years ago. "I admit, I underestimated you. Your progress has exceeded my expectations," Hela said in a deep voice, "but, is this the source of your confidence?" Thor didn't answer. He stretched out his other hand to activate the sling ring, drew a teleportation circle, and Barlow slipped into it. With this kind of prize fight, Loki is a drag here. Neither of them took the lead. They stared at each other closely. The vast divine powers seemed to be condensed into substance, and the pressure around them was breathless. "The battle is on the verge of breaking out. Stop it." The dignified atmosphere was completely destroyed by this shout. Thor withdrew his divine power and turned to look at Frigg, who had rushed over. "Mother." Frigga ignored him and looked at Hela. "My child, are you finally back?" There was some struggle on Hela's face, and it took a while before she whispered, "Mother." Unlike Odin, Frigga has always played the role of a loving mother. Whether it is Loki or Hela, no matter how unhappy they are with Odin, they always have a good impression of their mother. That's why Frigga came here in a hurry. Because she knows that once Thor and Hela fight, she is the only one who can pull them apart. Frigga sighed, and said in a low voice, "Son, go back. After all these years, your father has regretted it long ago, but as a god king, he cannot admit his fault. I have declared your existence to Asgard, and your history will no longer be covered up. Come back too, Asgard should not be divided." Hela closed her eyes and shook her head. "No, I can't go back." After a pause, he turned to look at Thor. "I know, Odin announced that you are his heir. However, he once said the same thing to me. Then as the eldest princess, I am qualified to challenge for the throne." Thor nodded, without denying. "Yes, I understand your dissatisfaction. You are my sister, and according to the original rules, the throne should indeed be yours. To be honest, I don't fancy this position, and I wish someone would come forward, but that person must not be you. The current king of Asgard can't afford it." "Really?" Hela sneered. "But what my mother said is good, Asgard should not be divided, including you and me." Thor froze for a moment, shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, but I won't call you queen. Then, we use the most traditional way to determine the ownership of the royal power. This ancient tradition, I believe most people in Asgard will accept it. The oldest way, Thor definitely understands. Asgard is a real fighting clan, and what they admire most is a hardy duel. Many disputes can be resolved through a duel, and sometimes the result of a duel can be used to determine whether the challenger is guilty or not. Well, the famous Vikings in Nordic history learned from them. In the last millennium, Asgard has slowly become more civilized, but this dueling culture has not faded away. Without returning to Asgard, my strength has not fully recovered," Hela said lightly. "Definitely, it is enough. If you want to do it now, I am happy to accompany you." Frigga looked at Thor. This kind of matter needs to be decided by him. Thor thought for a few seconds, then said in a deep voice, "I can wait for you to return to Asgard and fight me with all my strength. But, you must promise me one condition." "Conditions?" Hela agreed without even thinking about it. "Don't worry, you are more pleasing to the eye than Odin. I will keep you, as the vanguard of conquering the universe, and let you return to glory with me." "No." Thor shook his head. "My condition is that if you lose, you will give me back the soul of Valkyrie who died in the battle. Asgard, you need this power now." Hela was taken aback, nodded and said, "Yes. I have no other use for keeping these souls, but I want to remind you that these souls have only the most basic essence left, without any strength. That's enough. The quest triggered 15 years ago by survivors of the Valkyrie in Sakaar is finally about to be completed. As long as those poor souls are liberated, the soul castle rewarded by the system will allow them to be reborn and become a super army of their own. Go back first." Thor said to his mother and summoned Bifrost. "Heimdall, take us back." Boom. The colorful beams of light illuminated the sky, and the figures of Thor and Frigg disappeared. Hela watched this scene, slightly hesitation. Gritting his teeth, he walked into Bifrost. Asgard, Thor and Frigga had just left. Hela appeared in Bifrost's control room. "Who are you?" The three warriors of Asgard raised their weapons on the spot as if they were facing an enemy. They just came back from a mission outside and don't know the legend of Hela yet. "Stop." Heimdall stopped them. Hela ignored them. She took a deep breath of Asgard's air, feeling the return of Benri. After a long time, I announced loudly, "I am Hela, the eldest daughter of Odin. I'm back." It has only been a few hours since Frigga decided to reopen Hela's history, and most people don't know her yet. Just the evil breath of death emanating from Hela's side made the Asgardians instinctively hard to like it. In the square of Asgard, Hela looked at the troops that were approaching, and said loudly, "I found that many of you still don't know my existence. I am Hela, firstborn of Odin, ruler of the Asgard legions, first heir to the throne, goddess of death. Odin is dead. And soon, I will reclaim my throne by the ancient law of dueling. We were once a symbol of absolute power in the universe, and no one dared to challenge our authority, but Odin stopped in the 9 realms. Our destiny is destined to inform everything. I come back just to revive the glory and make the universe tremble for us again." The imaginary cheers did not happen, and there were still only vigilant eyes. Quack. It was as if a crow flew over Hela's head. However, because Heimdall informed the 3 warriors immediately, the soldiers did not act rashly. Hela also didn't do anything. In her opinion, these people are her capital to conquer the universe when she ascends the throne. No matter how strong a person is, he can't be a bare bones commander, right? Although she can go to resurrect the decedent and form an army of undead. But the fighting power of that kind of skeleton soldier is really hard to praise. A shuttle of bullets can knock down a large area. Zhuangzhuang's momentum is not bad. If you want to play Skull C tactics, let's go to sleep. In front of the soldiers, Fandral said, no matter who you are, even if you are the daughter of the former king, the former first heir, before you can really seize the throne, His Majesty Thor is our only king. Although the tone was tit for tat, it didn't seem to be dead. Hela heard the implication. If you can really win Thor, we will naturally accept you as king. If not, then go to bed. It can be seen that they are very confident in Thor's strength. As long as they are allowed to see their own strength, they will definitely be able to win the loyalty of these people. In fact, if she really won, Thor would really not play tricks, but instead helped Hela control Asgard to avoid a fight. I am determined to kill Thanos. If it is 2017 and I still can't handle a Hela, I might as well go to bed early. The time for the duel was set in 3 days. On the surface, Hela's strength is still slowly recovering, and the more time passes, the better it will be for her. The problem is, she has already felt that Thor's prestige is much higher than expected, and everyone in Asgard agrees with him more. If it drags on for a long time, even if you succeed in ascending to the position, there will be a large number of people who believe that Thor is the king in their hearts, which will be very detrimental to their control of Asgard. She definitely can take advantage of the warlike genes of the Asgard nation, fill them with chicken soup and paint big cakes with the glory of conquering the world. That Thor is also not a conservative king. Hela's reputation has long been buried by Odin, and even if it is rediscovered now, it is like listening to a story to most people. Unlike Thor, most people in Asgard have witnessed Thor's great reputation. Whether it is the destruction of the Dark Elves, or the repulsion of Thanos, it has only recently happened. Even if Loki had the feat of wiping out the giants of Jotunheim a few years ago. There is another important reason. With the death of Odin, Thor, who succeeded the king, will also usher in a rapid increase in strength. This is through a duel, the ownership of the right to decide? Natalia smiled with great interest. Why do some races always have the most advanced technology and the most advanced political system, but they still use the most primitive method to determine kingship? Just like Wakanda, Sky concluded. No, it's not the same as Wakanda. Thor smiled lightly. I will win. The ceremony of succession to the throne was postponed until after the duel. Thor brought the girls back to Asgard ahead of time. How could they be absent from such a major event in life? Yes, in his opinion, there was no suspense in this duel, it was just a play to convince Hela. How is the situation on Earth? Thor asked suddenly. It hasn't completely recovered, but it's much better than it was a few months ago. Peggy Carter said with a smile. At least, the captain's appeal is there, calling out to the camera a few times, and now there is no people rioted. Thor snickered. Definitely stopped making trouble. The reason for the non-stop fighting was because Jin Bing's people were playing rhythm everywhere. By the way, for such an important ceremony, an old friend has to inform me. Thor suddenly slapped his thigh. Natalia rolled her eyes and said slyly, that old friend you mentioned must be a woman again, right? Peggy and the others looked over with disdainful eyes. Thor. Damn, the agent's sixth sense should be so accurate. Thor will suddenly realize that he seems to be really scumbag. Obviously I have a lot of friends, most of the members of the Avengers Alliance on the Earth. Guardians of Galaxy is also a group of funny comparisons. Sakar's Gao Tianjun can be counted as half, and Nick Fury's bald old man can also be counted as half. But at this moment, I only thought of informing Carol. Well, must be because this woman is strong, so she is more likely to be taken seriously. Hello? Why are you contacting me so soon? Don't you know I'm busy? Carol's teasing voice came from the communicator. Tell me, is there another super boss to fight? Could it be that the purple sweet potato essence is coming again? Sure enough, it is a humanoid Hulk with muscles in his mind, and only fighting in his mind. Tor Khan paused and said speechlessly. There is a boss, but I fought it myself. I just want to inform you that in 3 days, I will officially become the king of Asgard. Come or not, it's up to you. Roar. At the other end of the universe, a gigantic monster hundreds of meters in size was roaring, and its berserk breath was overwhelming, sweeping all directions. Yet this was the last roar of its life. In the middle of its body, a hole was pierced from the chest to the back, and a woman bathed in golden radiance was leaving without looking back. Boom. The huge body crashed to the ground, stirring up smoke and dust in the sky. Carol sighed. It's too weak. with such strength, any Avenger can solve it. There are too few masters in the universe, and most of them are concentrated in a small area near the Earth. She looked helpless. Playing chess with the stinky chess basket all day, I will become a stinky player again. Forget it. Let's go to Asgard, at least we can practice with him a few times. These backward planets, without the protection of the Avengers, are helpless in the face of external threats, and Carol shoulders the burden of the space police. But for the backward planets, most of the threats they encounter will not be on the table. In the next 2 days, Carol cleaned up a large area of threats nearby, and these planets were safe in a short time. She came to one of the hidden planets and explained some things. Go at ease, we will maintain the situation. Opposite is the leader of the Skrulls, Talos. He smiled and said, 20 years ago, you promised to find a home for us, and you did it long ago. But you took the initiative to stay. Over the years, everything you have done for us and for these other planets, everyone is watching. The Skrulls have recovered a lot of energy over the years, at least they can protect themselves, and you don't have to bear everything alone. Oh, by the way, wait for me to say hello to His Majesty Thor. Unfortunately, I have to preside over the internal affairs of the race and have no time to go there in person. The Skrulls are different from the natives of other planets in this galaxy. They are not a backward race. On the contrary, they have a high level of technology. Although they almost lost everything when they escaped here, they have already rebuilt their home after so many years, and everything has recovered very well. Perhaps, in a few more years, the Skrulls will be able to shoulder the burden of guarding this galaxy, and Carol won't be so busy at that time. After Cattle explained some things, he flew up into the sky, glanced at the thriving screws, turned his head and left, and flew in the direction of Asgard. There is one more day, it should be in time, right? She didn't notice that a pair of eyes hidden in the dark were staring at her, watching her enter the wormhole. She left. The direction to go is probably Asgard. In the dark space, a voice suddenly sounded, with some gnashing of teeth. This woman's strength is very strong, and she is likely to be the last piece of weight in deciding the outcome. Therefore, we must avoid all of this. Message to the Kree. Tell Yanrog that the Skrull colony has been discovered. This guy has been following them for so many years, so he must be very interested. In the past few days, Gila has not been idle. In the depths of the underground palace, Gila looked at the corpse of the giant wolf in front of him, holding up a ball of flames with one hand. This is the eternal fire that Odin took from Serta hundreds of thousands of years ago. With the eternal flame, you were born again at this moment. With a palm slap on the ground, dark green energy poured from his hand into the giant wolf's corpse along the floor. A giant wolf tens of meters tall slowly stood up. Fenrir Wolf, Hyli's former mount. Dueling, it is allowed to carry mounts. For Gila, there is nothing more suitable than the Fenrir Wolf who has fought side by side for countless years. Gila turned his head and glanced at the countless corpses of soldiers around him. Forget it. Even if they are resurrected, there is not much strength left, let them rest in peace. Gila was talking to herself. What she wants is the real army of Asgard. In the office, Talos is sorting out a document. For the rejuvenation of the race, it can be said that he has worked hard and spent so much energy for so many years. Not like Carol. As for Captain Marvel being in charge of fighting, he doesn't need to use his brain at all, just complain if there is a problem, but he can't. In the past 20 years, there has been almost no rest for a day. However, he will be very relieved to see the Skrulls getting better every day. So, is my blessing. Talos sighed, my lord, it has been detected that an unknown flight object is approaching. A subordinate suddenly ran in and reported to him. Talos didn't care. The Skrulls also have advanced technology, and they have not forgotten their previous technology. They have now re-armed themselves, and it is easy to deal with idle enemies. Have you found out the other party's identity? The subordinate hesitated for a while, and said cautiously, I'm not sure, the other party's signal shielding is very good. Preliminary speculation, it is likely to be the Kree. Crack. The quilt in Talos' hand was instantly crushed. Is it just passing by, or came to the door? To the north of Asgard's square is a very old arena. As a martial race, many things can be resolved through duels. As a royal family, definitely has the largest arena, enough for tens of thousands of people to witness the holy duel. It has not been open for many years since Odin started to take the peaceful path in the last few thousand years. Today, a battle to determine the kingship will start here. Seeing the giant wolf exuding a terrifying aura behind Gila, Thor beckoned. Anixia understood and walked to Thor's side. Loki didn't know her identity, so he beeped softly, brother, bring a real mount, the one you ride during the day. Thor. In the eyes of countless people, the petite and exquisite Count Katarina started shapeshifting in the next moment. Roar. The roar of the dragon resounded throughout the world, and a black dragon, which was no less in size than the Fenrir giant wolf, appeared in midair, with huge wings spread out, making her look even bigger. Fenrir's wolf eyes showed obvious seriousness. Perhaps its strength is not much worse, but the ability of the dragon race is definitely much stronger than it. Can we start? Thor smiled lightly. The corner of Hela's mouth twitched. She knew that she would not take the dog with her for a few days. A transparent curtain rose slowly, covering the duel field and isolating the internal attacks. The battle for royal power has officially begun. Ah. The IQ of the Fenrir wolf is not low. It knows that if it does not take the lead, it is likely to be suppressed throughout the process. It roared and rushed up fiercely. A trace of ridicule flashed in the dragon eyes of the black dragon princess. She flapped her wings and flew into the air, letting the opponent fly into the air. Before the giant wolf could react, it felt darkness around it, and a black figure rushed down from the sky, its mouth biting its neck. Wow. Seeing that the dragon's claw was about to grab it, the Fenrir wolf lay down on the ground and rolled over. Boom. The violent energy explosion, if it weren't for the effect of the protective shield, almost everyone present would be blown away by the energy storm. Taking advantage of the innate advantages of the dragon clan and taking deep breaths from time to time, the black dragon princess has the upper hand, but the Fenrir wolf also has rough skin and thick flesh. Especially after being revived, it doesn't feel any pain, and it can be said that the more it fights, the more brave it is, and it may be hard to tell the winner in a short time. Everyone's eyes turned to the other side, where the real decision of the outcome was. Bang bang bang, Hela used her signature flying sword. After recovering her power eggs, her strength soared, and countless black flying swords enveloped all directions, overwhelming the sky. This is to open the legendary unlimited firepower hang. The current Hela may have a headache even if the ancient one is still there. After all, the magician is too brittle. Even if it has a shield, it will be finished if it is leaped casually. The best way to deal with this situation is to also open the hang invincible hang. Thor stood still with a calm expression on his face. Hela stared dumbfounded at the flying sword stabbing Thor's body, making a sound of metal collisions, and falling to the ground with sparks. Man of steel, so terrifying. The soldiers and civilians of Asgard who watched the battle in the surrounding auditorium gave out loud cheers. Loki laughed and said, "Did you see it, Queen Mother? I'll just say it's okay." Shouted to the audience. Thor, cut her. How dare you make the great god of mischief kneel? What a shame. Kill this crazy bitch. He was excited for a while, and even got violent. A few days ago, Hela almost scared him to pee. After all, Loki is different from Thor. He has no blood relationship with Hela, and he doesn't want Thor and Frigga to get along for so many years. Hela is an alien invader to him. Ahem. Frigga coughed, and the murderous electric light pointed at Loki. Loki suddenly came back to his senses, and realized that he had said the wrong thing. He slapped himself twice, and smiled. In the arena, Thor didn't speak, but just looked at Hela with a blank expression. The meaning was self-evident. Is that all you know? Hela's face was ashen, and when she waved her hands, the ground broke open, and several tens of meters long dark green huge spikes floated beside her. Swipe. 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 Spikes flew past one by one, spanning a distance of hundreds of meters in an instant, and the wolf stabbed at Thor. This was a terrifying blow that condensed Hela's whole body's divine power, and even Thor couldn't resist it without injury. Shouting all over his body, the shining thunderlight illuminated the whole of Asgard, and he condensed his whole body's energy and punched hard on the frontmost spike. Boom. Huge amounts of explosions resounded through the sky, and smoke and dust billowed. In the smoke and dust that no one could see clearly, thunder flashed from time to time, and several constant explosions sounded. Only Hela at close range can see clearly, and his offensive has been completely broken. Just as he was about to react, an extremely thick and terrifying thunderbolt fell from the sky, rumbling fiercely on Hela. In the field of magic, Thor's thunderstrike is at the same level as Hela's death power. The characteristics of thunder make it the most powerful of all magic. Hela's protection was completely irresistible, and the lightning broke through the shield in an instant. This is not the thunder power of awakening just now, but an attack that has been honed for more than 20 years and has already become extremely proficient. Hela was thrown into the air by huge amounts of shockwave, flew several hundred meters, and slammed into the protective shield of the arena, making a huge amounts of impact sound. The transparent protective cover flickered for a while, and was almost broken by a blow. With a full blow, Thor also consumed a lot, and even with the strong resilience of the steel body, he gasped heavily. Outside the arena, Xingyun murmured, "No wonder, even my father would be deflated." Not to mention the terrifying lightning strike that doesn't need to be read, the steel body with almost absolute defense alone can give a purebred fighter like Thanos a headache. In fact, she guessed right. It was Thanos who managed to gain the upper hand at the beginning. The long-planned fatal blow failed to break through the defense, but was poked into a hole by a backhand shot, and almost capsized in the gutter. Now coupled with the invincible Stormbreaker, I am afraid that Thanos will give it away when he comes. Is it over? Wanda asked in a low voice. Her strength is very strong. If she breaks out with all her strength, few people at the scene can stop her. Wanda is a special existence among all people. The relationship between her and Thor changes the fastest. Seems to confirm the relationship in an instant. Love at first sight is not so fast. But at the same time, she is a bit of an amateur in terms of combat, and it is difficult to see the way. Jane Foster, who has divine power, shook her head. It's not that easy. Although the opponent's defense is not as good as Thor's, her recovery ability is obviously stronger, and her vitality is almost unlimited. Then how can they decide the winner? Wanda asked a crucial question. One has unlimited defense, the other has unlimited blood. What a mess. Hela walked out from the ruins, her eyes full of fear. The attack just now, although relying on his special divine power, managed to withstand it. But she is very clear that although she seems to have recovered, there is still the power of thunder in her body, which needs to be suppressed forcibly with the power of death. If there were several more terrorist attacks like this, his body would be at risk of collapsing. Fortunately, such an attack consumes a lot even for Thor, and it is impossible to fire infinitely. Thor looked at Hela and yelled, "Stop all these temptations. If you want the throne, then show your strength." Hela snorted coldly. "As you wish." With a flick of his hand, appeared in his hand with a slender black long sword. This is not the kind of little flying sword that was summoned by magic and thrown around casually, but also Hela's exclusive weapon, Night Sky Sword. Hela is proficient in almost all Asgard magic. She is a character who mainly uses magic as her ability. She doesn't fight much in melee. Generally speaking, Hela is more like a magic character than Thor. The most common use is to use the power of death to take out a pair of short swords, leaving no blade of grass where they pass, and return to the sect as a mythical version of 10,000 swords. But this does not mean that her melee ability is poor. She has powerful swordsmanship, and it is even more like a fish in water when paired with a perfectly matched artifact like the Night Sky Sword. Moreover, compared to magic, melee combat is more suitable for her to exert the power of artifacts. The real Asgard powerhouses are all skilled in both magic and martial arts. Just like Thor, it doesn't matter whether they call it war or not. Well, it's not that a family doesn't go into a house. Many people think that Thor is a warrior, but he is actually a thunder magician, or a melee magician. Many people think that Loki is a magician, but people also like to stab people with small daggers. This is clearly an assassin, and an assassin with magician attributes. A witch like Frigga can suppress Malekith with her sword skills. Not to mention Hela for a few days. In the original book, the Magic Flying Sword Group wiped out the Valkyrie troops of Megatron 9 realms, and then relied on simple melee control Thor to get down. Seeing Hela copy the guy, Thor knew she was going to give it her all. The moment is no longer reserved, and the Stormbreaker is in place in an instant. In everyone's eyes, the swords and axes collided together. In a space countless light years away, a spaceship is floating around. Hey! Hey! In the cockpit of the spaceship, a familiar rhythm sounded. The idiot Xingju is dancing. Damn it, Turtle, how long will it take us to get to Asgard if you keep jumping around like this? Rocket avoided this guy far away, as if he was worried about being infected by his stupidity. I have to declare, it's Quill, not Geyer. Xingju spoke sternly, and then smiled lightly. Don't worry, I calculated the distance, we will definitely be able to catch up with Thor's enthronement ceremony. Gamora was expressionless. How do you know? It's today. Look at the time, maybe the fight is almost over now. That doesn't matter. Xingju didn't take it seriously. When he becomes king, he will definitely report a grand celebration dinner, the kind that lasts all night. We just need to catch up. Why celebrate? Drax couldn't turn his head around. His father just died a few days. Shouldn't this be a very sad thing? Why celebrate? Xingju felt like he didn't know how to answer. He was born on Earth, so he doesn't know much about this culture, only some court stories he read when he was a child. Does the new king have to cry instead of celebrating when he ascends the throne? Is he still waiting for a few years to consider the throne? He changed the subject and said, "It's not all like this. Like me, my father's death is not at all sad." Drax. Gamora seconded. "I'm not sad when my father dies, maybe I'll dance disco happily." Rocket. Groot. "I almost forgot, both of these guys had a rough life. However, you are much better than me, and at least you have Yondu, a foster father." Gamora said sadly, "I can see that he treats you like his own son. And I'd rather not have this father." Gamora gritted her teeth. She is the adopted daughter of Thanos. Though Thanos seems nice to her, she will never forget that it was Thanos who slaughtered her planet. There was silence in the spaceship, only the sound of popping buttons remained. Groot, who has grown into a teenager, is playing a game. How far to Asgard? Star-Lord broke the atmosphere of silence. Rocket Raccoon, who was driving the spaceship alone, said without looking back, "It's not far away, there are probably 2 more jumps to be made. Sit still, there's 1 more jump to come." With a whoosh, the spaceship entered the jumping point and shook violently. "Oh, dead raccoon, you must be drinking, right?" "No, Quill, it's your spaceship's clutch that's broken. I've said it needs a major maintenance, and you're still procrastinating to fix it." JUUGGUUD, boom underscore. The violent shaking made Groot shake his hand. Looking at that game over on the screen, he was so angry that he threw the game console out and hit the windshield in front of the driver's seat. F***K. Shingju was furious, rushed over and reprimanded loudly. "How many times have I said, don't smash things? If you smash things again, no one will buy you a new one." "I'm Groot. You should talk back. Quell." The Rocket's voice sounded. "Don't stop me. I must teach it a lesson today." "No, look at that." When Shingju looked up, his pupils suddenly shrank into a line. "Damn, what is this?" Shingju's eyes were full of shock. What came into view was a huge monster that almost covered half of the starry sky. It was not easy for Shingju to judge that this is not a planet, but a spaceship. No, it should be said that Star Fortress is more appropriate. I thought Thor's Millennium Falcon that I had seen back then was exaggerated enough, but compared with the huge spaceship in front of me, it doesn't even count as a corner. "Not good," Gamora exclaimed, with a voice full of disbelief and fear. "This is Holy Place number 2. This is Thanos' car. Almost all of Thanos' troops are inside." "What?" Everyone was startled, and Rocket's ears and tail stood up. Just in time. Drax sneered. "Today, I will avenge my wife and my daughter." "Drax, calm down." Gamora pulled her back. "Shut up, you idiot." Gamora cursed. Holy Place 2's firepower can easily destroy a planet. It only takes 1 round of artillery fire to kill us all. Shingju suddenly calmed down, and whispered, calm down, don't panic, everyone." He explained. "If the other party wanted to kill us, they would have done it long ago. The reason why they haven't opened fire yet may be that their purpose is not to kill us." Everyone squinted at him, with expressions of, "Are you mentally handicapped?" It fell into the hands of Thanos, who would peel off the skin. 1 card means 2 endings. Death, our life is worse than death. Seeing everyone's faces, Shingju quickly explained. "I mean the title of the book. He must be trying to capture us alive, so there must be some purpose. We can try to pretend to catch him, and then sneak attack him. But what is the purpose of extinction for us?" asked the Rocket. Gamora's face changed, she seemed to think of something, and pulled Star-Lord. "What's wrong?" Gamora pointed to the next room. Shingju understood and said, "Rocket, you find a plan, I'll come right away." Pull Gamora to the next door and close the door. "Is there anything Juan told me alone?" Gamora hesitated, gritted her teeth and said, "Quill, promise me one thing." "You say. If your so-called plan fails, I want you to promise me that you will kill me immediately." "What?" "No, absolutely not." Star-Lord flatly refused. "Promise me, Quill." Gamora stared into Star-Lord's eyes and explained. "Because I know a secret that he doesn't know. If I let him know, the entire universe will be at stake." Shingju was taken aback for a moment, and asked in confusion, "What secret?" Gamora shook her head. "If I tell you, you will know too. The fewer people who know, the safer." Shingju walked up and put his hand on her shoulder. "If it's really such an important secret, shouldn't I know it? Unless you want to die. Why does anyone have to die?" Shingju disapproved. "I beg you. Gamora's eyes were full of pleading. I want you. Swear to me in the name of your mother. Star-Lord stared into her eyes. After a long time, he whispered, okay. In Asgard, this duel about royal power has lasted for a whole day. It has been more than half a day since the fight started in the morning. Boom, with a duel, the two quickly separated. Hela looked at Thor solemnly, her eyes full of fear. Thor's Man of Steel is really too foul. Even if it's a night sky sword, it's just a white scratch, which can't do any harm at all. Only by attacking with all its strength can it cause a little threat. But Thor's Stormbreaker is the strongest artifact that deserves it. In Thor's hands, his strength has risen several levels. I dare not resist her attack head-on. I can only rely on the lightness of the night sky sword to fight him. Even so, she is also seriously injured now. The Storm Tomahawk is really too powerful, not only invincible, but also its powerful enchantment, even dreams of suppressing one's own recovery ability. The majestic god of death, there will be a day when he dare not confront each other head-on. Think about it, it's really ironic. No. I won't lose. Hela gritted her teeth, chanted the incantation, and the night sky sword in her hand instantly became tens of meters long, and slashed fiercely with the power of death. Boom. Seeing that his full blow was blocked by Thor's axe, Hela's eyes were dull. Are you still unwilling to give up? Thor looked at Hela on the opposite side, and whispered persuasion. Our power should be used to conquer everything, not wasted here. Just as Hela wishes to subdue Thor, Thor also wishes to subdue Hela. If Hela can finally surrender, it will be a very important improvement for Asgard's combat power. On the other side, the Fenrir wolf fell to the ground and got up roaring. Boom. A group of raging flames descended from the sky and overwhelmed it again. After all, it is no match for the black dragon. Seeing the miserable situation of this old friend, Hela sighed a long time. Tell her to stop. With a flick of his hand, a crystal was thrown over. Thor caught it. What is this? What you want, Valkyrie's soul, is all inside. Thor looked inside, and sure enough, he found 28 souls, one of which was quite a few. Although the current soul looks very weak, it will not be long before they will become an invincible army again. Hela took a complicated look, gritted her teeth, and knelt down on one knee to express her submission. The audience cheered. In fact, this is quite normal. Although Hela's identity has been recognized again, for most Asgardians, Hela is still more like an outsider. Thor is the heir to the throne they recognize. Thor ordered. Remove the shield. In the control room of the arena, the person in charge nodded. I went to activate the mechanism, but I didn't find a sneaky figure approaching at all. No, who are you? Ah. The light of the protective cover is slowly falling, and Thor looks at this scene with a lot of thoughts. The difficulty of Ragnarok, is it over? At this moment, the protective cover that was being withdrawn suddenly paused, then rose rapidly, and lit up again in an instant. What's the situation? Thor shouted, where's the person in charge here? A sense of foreboding suddenly rose in his heart. Soon, someone came to report. Report, Your Highness, the arena management office was attacked by unknown persons, and the control mechanism was destroyed. What? Everyone present was shocked. Today is an important day, the eyes of all Asgard people are attracted. At this time, foreign enemies invade. What are their plans? Could it be for Thor and Hela? Boom. Facing the protective cover, he slashed down heavily with an axe, and a crack appeared on the protective cover, and then it was slowly recovering. Thor frowned. The protective shield can't trap him for too long, the other party won't miss this, so. Who the hell? How dare you offend Asgard? Next to him, Hela had a look of anger. I don't know, the other party is obviously just planning to trap us for a while, so as to carry out a bigger plan. Thor pulls out the sling ring, intending to use the portal. The golden magical energy flickered away. The interior of this shield shields space transmission. In other words, my level in this aspect is still half-baked. Perhaps, the space teleportation that truly ignores Asgard's prohibition can only be performed by Ancient One himself, or through Tesseract. Wait, Tesseract? Thor was suddenly covered in cold sweat, and shouted, leave me alone, go and check the treasure house. As the voice fell, the reason began. On Holy Place number 2, all the Silver Guardians were imprisoned together in a prison. When Chi-Ruida soldiers entered, they just resisted a few times in a symbolic manner, and then they were caught without a fight. A group of commoner heroes, originally they can only fight minions. Especially the second generation of a certain god, most of the time when he fights a soldier, his wife will save him. It's also quite interesting to say, The same as the second generation of gods, and after losing his father, Thor's fierce competition, his strength continues to soar, and he can also awakening god-level skills, can miss father mode. But Xingju was much more miserable. Yi Ji became immortal immediately after his death, and he performed last in 2 consecutive big movies with heroes assembled. Those who heard it were sad and those who saw it shed tears. Speaking of which, Asgard is indeed a very special race, and every superpower and offspring are not far behind. Like the children of Odin, both Thor and Hela are ruthless characters who can walk sideways. The only one who fights the 5 scumbags, Loki, is adopted. Other races are not so blessed. The descendants of those supermasters are basically the second-generation ancestors. Relatively speaking, Xingju is pretty good, at least his IQ is normal when he is not stupid. This seems a bit strange. As it stands now, Star-Lord single-handedly hatches a plan to behead Thanos. All the silver guards in the cell were tied behind their backs with special handcuffs, and it was impossible to break free under normal circumstances. Even Thor would have to struggle to break free. But it's not normal right now, there's Groot after all. Hey, buddy, let's talk a little bit. Xingju accosted the Kirita soldiers guarding the door. The Zerita soldiers didn't look sideways. Who cares about you, idiot? But what he met was Star-Lord. Oh boy. It's all going to pass. Oh boy. Everything will be better. Dance hard. One day, we'll figure out how to. Rocket Raccoon wailed. Oh, what a shame. I really want to say I don't know this guy. Sister Mantis murmured. What the hell is he doing? Why is it like an animal courting? Drax shook his head and said seriously, no, little sister, you don't need to say such hints. I won't accept mating with you, you are too ugly. Xingju once again let go of himself, betrayed his integrity, and then attracted the attention of the guards. What kind of nerves is this kid on? No one noticed that a thin branch quietly protruded from the cell, spread to the console, and quietly pressed one of the buttons. Crack. The cell opened instantly, and the electronic handcuffs on Yinhu's hands fell to the ground. The Zerita soldier was startled, and was about to sound the alarm when a hand was placed on his head. Go to sleep. With a plop, he fell to the ground. It's done. Xingju said happily. Don't be too happy. Gamora poured cold water on him. It's just a soldier. Let's think about how to face Thanos. I've made a plan for a long time, and we're just like this. In the command room, a burly figure was looking at a photo with gentle eyes. The photo clearly showed Gamora as a child. Thanos, the supervillain who killed countless people, showed a rare tender side. Little guy, you must still hate me, right? I always knew. After all, I slaughtered your planet, including your mother. Thanos stroked the photo lightly, as if talking to himself. But I don't regret it. Your original planet is on the verge of collapse. You have no food and no clothes. It is I who prevented the tragedy from happening. Do you know what happened afterwards? You must have never gone back to see it. The children today are born with no worries about food and clothing, and grow up happily under the clear sky. It's like heaven. Salvation has always required a price. The universe is not infinite, nor are resources. If life is not restrained, life will cease to exist one day. All of this needs to be corrected by someone, even if it will bear the curse of the entire universe. And I am the only one who understands this truth, at least I am the only one who puts it into action. Thanos said this with a nostalgic face, suddenly raised his head, his eyes became serious. Come out. I see you. The next moment, Xingju jumped out from a corner. Hey. Hey. The magical rhythm sounded, and the king of dancing, Xingju, appeared on the stage. Thanos looked at Star-Lord, who was dancing and singing like a howling wolf, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Is this the guy who abducted the old man's precious daughter? I bought a watch last year. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. A green figure burst out of thin air, and arrived in front of Thanos in an instant. Secretly, Rocket scolded in a low voice. Damn it. Why doesn't everyone follow orders? Gamora jumped into the air and slashed Thanos with his sword. Thanos was Thanos after all. He recovered from being attacked within a few rounds, grabbed the dagger with one hand, and twisted it with a click. Seeing that the situation was not good, Gamora took out the artifact dagger Thanos gave her, and stabbed Thanos hard in the chest. This dagger has a lot of background. It is called God Slayer. It can be retracted freely, and it is famous for being able to kill Asgard, even in the face of powerful monsters. Gamora can use it to easily slit the opponent's throat. In other words, it can also easily slit Thanos' throat. The expected fatal blow didn't come true. The dagger stopped near Thanos' heart, and Thanos firmly grasped her hand. My daughter, have you forgotten? I taught all your skills. Even, I can predict the direction of every shot you make. Thanos knew that Gamora wanted to kill him, so he dared to hand over the God Slayer dagger to Gamora. He was definitely sure. On the other side of the universe, Talos looked at the destroyed Kree fighter with a serious expression. This is just an ordinary fighter plane. With the current level of air defense of the Skrulls, it is not difficult to destroy it. The real key is, why did it come to this remote place? Did it do it on purpose, or did it get lost accidentally? Did it send a message to the Supreme Intelligence before it crashed? An adjutant faltered and hesitated to speak. Just say what you have to say. The adjutant hesitated for a while, and said in a low voice, My lord, with our current strength, if the Kree invade in a large scale, I'm afraid there is a danger of extermination. Should inform Ms. Carroll? Talos was silent for a while, shaking his head. The other party may not be coming for us, so be more vigilant. Deep down, the Skrulls have some pride in themselves. As a race that used to compete with the Kree for hegemony, it is already very helpless to be reduced to this point. For the survival of the race, they have to accept the protection of Captain Marvel. But that doesn't mean he can feel at ease. After all, the other party has done enough for them over the years. You already knew about our plan? Gamora asked coldly. Thanos was smiling, and he could see that he was in a good mood. I know you very well. If you don't have other ideas, it is not easy to catch you. Thanos knows the level of his men very well. Except for Black Order, those Chirida people are all scum in group battles. Apart from relying on numbers to kill the enemy, the level of individual soldiers is really embarrassing. As soon as Gamora picked up the broken sword, he was about to strike, but Thanos grabbed his hands and subdued him instantly. Thanos, pay back the lives of my wife and children. Drax rushed forward violently, raising his two knives and was about to stab him down. Thanos grabs him by the neck and throws him out. Mantis Girl descended from the sky, trying to use hypnotic ability, but when she landed in the air, she saw an iron chain wrapped around her, and she was bound into a dumpling on the spot, unable to move. Before Rocket and Groot could move, they followed in their footsteps. Purple potato essence, let her go. Star-Lord rushed out with a loud shout. Haidongdong's gun was aimed at Thanos. You're Gamora's little boyfriend, Peter Quill? Thanos asked with interest. No. I'm the famous gold medal Titan killer. Let her go quickly, or I'll blow off your ass like ugly face with one shot. No, Peter. Gamora's face was full of tears. It's not him, you promised me, you promised me. Shingju was shocked, and tremblingly lowered the muzzle of the gun, aiming at Gamora. Daughter, you are too strong, he won't do it. The trembling in Shingju's hand became more severe. Gamora shook her head and whispered, Shoot, Quill, I love you. Shingju murmured, I love you too. He closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and pulled the trigger. Bu. Bu underscore with the gun in his hand, 3 suckers were shot out. This is a toy gun. Thanos said lightly, not bad, boy, I appreciate you. Shingju put down his gun and gritted his teeth. Purple sweet potato Jing, you will not succeed. Someone will definitely stop you. Thanos sneered. If you're talking about that Asgardian, you're probably going to be disappointed. He's probably in danger now. A blue light circle appeared, the Tesseract was activated, and Thor and Hela came to the outside of the shield in an instant. But the seriousness on Thor's face did not decrease a bit. The earth is still shaking, and there is no news from the soldiers heading to the treasure house. I am afraid that they have already. Thor picked up the Rubik's Cube and was about to go to the treasure house to see for himself. Boom. With a loud bang, the golden hall that had stood for countless years suddenly collapsed, and a giant covered in fire rose from the ruins, and his size rapidly expanded. Tremble before me, Asgard, and destroy. Serta, which is hundreds of meters high, waved the artifact in his hand, Twilight Sword, and countless buildings were reduced to ruins in an instant. Fortunately, most of the Asgards were near the arena at this time, otherwise countless casualties would have been caused by this blow. Ragnarok. How is that possible? Thor murmured. Since coming to this world, relying on the advantage of being familiar with the plot, he has always been used to controlling everything. Even the ultimate boss like Thanos is nothing more than a purple sweet potato essence in his eyes. For the first time, things were out of his control. Thor, a panicked figure, rushed over quickly. Loki, the god of pranks who pays attention to the most spectacle, is in a panic at the moment. He shouted. The treasury has been attacked, and the opponents are Thanos people. They stole the gold gloves. Needless to say, I already know. This account has a chance to be settled, and now it is this monster that needs to be settled. Why? Thor's face was gloomy. He knew that he was too careless and relied too much on his familiarity with the plot. For so many years, he has been making arrangements, and Thanos has also made arrangements, and has endured for so many years, just for this moment. Serta is still wreaking havoc, and God knows where Thanos is wreaking havoc right now. He couldn't help being a little thankful that he didn't put infinite gems in the seemingly safest treasure house like the original book. It's just that he couldn't figure it out. How did Thanos break through the defenses of the Golden Hall and the treasure house and enter the deepest part? And according to Loki, the other party is not just one person, but a large number of troops sneaking in. Can't be distracted now, Serta with the eternal fire. This is a super existence almost no less than the peak Odin. Thor decisively ordered. Everyone evacuates out of the city. Hela, you stop it with me, and you assist from the side. He points to stronger Avengers such as Wanda, Jean Grey, and Jane Foster. A battle of this level is more dangerous than fighting against Thanos, and it is meaningless to intervene rashly if one is not strong enough. Everyone nods, including Hela. They know that this is not the time to ink. Boom. Asgard isn't really a planet, its size is relatively small and larger than any other planet in the 9 realms. But as Asgard is located, Asgard's crust is the strongest, and it is full of all kinds of enchantments. But now, Serta can cause an earthquake just by stomping his feet. With a wave of your hand, the volcano erupts. The flames rose, and the breath of destruction swept all directions. Whoosh whoosh. Hela's feelings for Asgard are no worse than anyone else's, and she can't stand it for a long time. With a wave of his hand, the huge dark green spikes roared and flew toward Serta. Roar. With a painful roar, a huge spike pierced Serta's chest. Whizzing. A throne filled with the power of infinite death broke out from the ground, and Hela stepped on it, and shot out countless spikes with her waved hands. Don't think Thor can resist death spikes, that's because the Man of Steel is too strong. If it was another opponent, even Thanos would not dare to resist Hela's attack. Thor flew high into the sky, and suddenly the sky and the earth changed color. A bright lightning shot into the battle axe, and the thunder light illuminated the sky and the earth. Facing Serta's head, with an axe. Ah! An earth-shattering scream sounded. The battle axe avoided the crown, split the hard head instantly, and tore straight to a depth of nearly 10 meters. If it was the previous Serta, this blow would be enough to instantly kill him. But now it is as high as hundreds of feet, and the head alone is tens of meters high. Thor's full blow only played a role in opening the skull. Nevertheless, Thor's blow still angered it. Serta reached out and grabbed Thor, and smashed it hard to the ground. A gentle force lifted him up. It was Wanda. Chingele launched psychokinesis, and suddenly a water dragon flew up from the lake, saying that Serta's severed head was poured into it.